welcome everybody. This is Long Distance Relationships, Miles Apart, Hearts Together. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dawn.
We haven't actually done a Zoom class together in a long time.
Not in a while, no. But if you're on this Zoom class with us now, you may know us from the podcast, which we do together all the time. So after 670 episodes, you would think we'd be able to present something together.
Yeah, and we've got an intensive coming up in Kansas City this weekend. So we'll be doing a lot of that again. And we just finished in Chicago, which we did a lot of. So yeah, you're lucky all this gets chopped out in the editing.
Oh, does it? Oh, I thought that was nice banter.
So cool. Well, I'll keep a little bit of it.
So for those of you that don't know us, Dawn and I have been together since about, I don't know.
1999. I'm the calendar.
Since 1999, which is some time ago. And since about 2003, we presented somewhere between 12 and 18 events per year, topics such as polyamory, power exchange, kink, sacred sexuality, and most recently, long distance relationships.
Indeed. We like to throw out there that we have the Erotic Awakening Podcast. You can find everything we do at eroticawakening.com. Our newest book came out yesterday on Kickstarter. I keep wanting to say Kickstarter because we have the Kickstarter cards. Kickstarter, so Lead, Follow, Love. If you want a power exchange relationship book, a new one, we wrote that with Kevin and Katie, and we're super excited about it. That was so much fun to write and to keep a secret for a year. Right. So, because we didn't even put it out there that we were writing a book with them. So a few people got a little, previews,
so to speak.
So, yeah. but not too many.
So for our class today, a couple of disclaimers real quick. You will hear us use the pronouns that the people that we're talking about prefer to use. I personally go with he, him.
I am she, her.
And as we go through the different stories about some of our long distance relationships, we'll use the pronouns of the people that they prefer themselves to be used.
Awesome. So we also have researched this a little bit by reaching out to other people and how they do long distance. But most of the stuff that we present, that we teach, is based on our personal experience. So not a lot of theory here. This is what has worked for us over the last 20 some years or however many we've been doing long distance.
And a lot of times what doesn't work. And that's a great teacher as well.
True.
You will be hearing some naughty language during this presentation. We will drop an F-bomb on occasion as appropriate, not just because we like to cuss, but it is naturally the way we speak.
And then simulated sex, that's a disclaimer for this one.
It is.
It is. But we're in the RV, so which is another disclaimer, is that we are full-time RVers. So we are in our RV at the moment. Simulated sex when you're sitting in recliners with a desk in front of you isn't so easy, but I bet Dan can figure it out. So.
Absolutely can. So be forewarned, it has got nothing to do with this class, but it may pop up just because.
Though we will be talking about sex a little bit with this class. The other disclaimer that I have, and this is a big one, long distance relationships obviously they happen in all styles of relationships, monogamous, non-monogamous, power exchange, whatever labels we use, vanilla, the whole gambit. But because we are polyamorous and we are power exchange, we'll have some hints and some tips and tricks that are specifically for those sort of dynamics as well. But most of the stuff that we're going to talk about can be used in any dynamic. So a lot of generic things that can be used.
We'll front load with generic long distance relationship tips and tricks. And if we get through the first 50 minutes and we start talking poly or we start talking power exchange and that doesn't apply to you, that's fine. Take what you need and leave the rest.
Yeah. And you might find that just because we use those in those styles, that it could work for any style as well. So, just tweak it and it could work.
And it's not just long distance relationships we're going to talk about, but also a term that I heard for the first time today because Dawn wrote it on these show notes.
Because I've said it before.
Mid-distance relationships. So let's talk about the difference between those two things real quick.
So the reason I throw mid-distance in there is because when I was dating Big D, so I have a poly partner, Big D, and you guys have probably heard about him on the podcast. Some of you have met him. We've been together for 10 years. But he, for the first 8 years, 7.5 years, lived about 90 minutes from us. So we lived in Columbus. He lived in Dayton. And even though it's not like super long distance that I have to fly to or something like that, it's still long distance. We're not able to just sneak away for a kiss or a hug or something like that. Things still have to be planned out. So for us to have time together, and we still have to work around each other's schedules. That's what I mean by mid distance. So it's still kind of long distance. I mean, it was 90 minutes was actually on the edge of each of ours limit of
Mhm.
what we would date at the time, because neither one of us wanted to do long distance. And then he and his wife decided that they were going to become full-time RVers, sold everything and left Dayton. Well, we were still in Columbus. They were going to come back every 3 months for the military base. There were some appointments that they would have to have every 3 months. So we were going to do that. They were going to come back every 3 months. We were going to get together and catch up. Well, then we decided to become full-time RVers.
Mhm.
And then they decided that they didn't need those 3-month appointments. So things kind of went really long distance because we ended up on opposite sides of the country. So we went from mid distance to long distance.
Right.
But most of what we're going to talk about is long distance.
And when we think about long distance, we don't want you to get stuck in thinking, well, how far away is that, right?
Mhm.
It's different for everybody. A great example that we've used on Christmas Day, Dawn and I were driving around, and Dawn said, you haven't seen your poly partner Karen today. Let's stop by and we'll give her a quick kiss and say Merry Christmas, and we'll go on with what we had plans to do.
Right.
A long distance or a mid distance relationship is a relationship where that's simply not possible. You can't go off and visit that person without some level of planning, without some level of time commitment. Now, again, you might see long distance relationship as, 200 miles. For me currently, it means I have one partner in Chicago and I have one partner in Phoenix, Arizona, and
And a power exchange one in Dallas.
and a power exchange one in Dallas. And because we're full-time RVers, we sometimes are in Chicago, which puts me far away from my Phoenix partner, but sometimes we're in Arizona, which puts me far away from my Chicago partner. Most of the time, we're in neither of those places. We're in Nebraska, we're in South Dakota, we're in New Mexico, where nobody's nearby. It's all whatever you distance, whatever you call it, I call that long distance.
And I forget how big this country is until we start driving around it, because even when we were in South Dakota last year and Big D was in South Dakota, he was on one side, we were on the other. That's a 9-hour drive, and neither one of us he wasn't able to leave family, and and they're out in the boonies, so it's not like we could hook up at a hotel, and so that didn't work out. But he's in New Mexico right now, and I'm hoping he stays there long enough for when we pass through, so I'll be able to see him after a year.
So, with that as background, as context, what we want to talk about today is how do you nurture those relationships? How do you keep them alive and vibrant when simply stopping by to say hi isn't part of the picture?
And these are things that we've had to learn, because for a long time we were like, oh, we're not doing long distance. We're bad at long distance. Out of sight, out of mind. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of nurturing, and things like that. And because we created the situation, and we are polyamorous and want to nurture polyamorous relationships, for us, that's where a lot of our long distance comes in. So we've had to learn the skills, right?
Yeah. And that is the first thing that we want you to take away from this is if you are the kind of person that says, well, I'm bad at long distance relationships, stop saying that, right? Dawn and I self-labeled that way for a long time. And guess what? It was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Once we decided long distance relationships are worth doing and we are going to learn how to do them, then it became easier and easier, especially. And then we just started to apply some tools, which we're going to share with you guys tonight.
Right. Well, I didn't want to drop Big D, and you had created new relationships that happened to be in different cities. So we had to figure out how to make this work, right?
Yep. So the first thing that you have to figure out with your long distance relationships is what kind of communication schedule are you going to have?
If any at all.
If any at all. And then we'll talk about how you're going to communicate. Now, for myself, I am for all of my poly partners, and we have different styles of relationships between me and my other partners. But for all of my long distance relationships, every morning you're going to send me a good morning, and every night you're going to send me a good night. And I'm going to respond to those. I might even initiate those messages. But every morning, and this is just via text, good morning, good morning, honey bunny. Nobody calls me honey bunny. But if they did, they'd say, good morning, honey bunny. I slept great. Today, here's what I'm doing today. So there's your bare minimum that you're going to build in there, right? Because we have to build some consistency. We have to build some structure to stay connected in some relationships. Now, you may be at a point in your long distance relationship where you don't need that kind of structure. You don't need that. I haven't gotten there with any of my relationships yet. I like that twice a day minimum touch base. And when I say minimum, it is rare that we go with just that.
Mm-hmm.
But I can rely on that no matter how busy everyone is, no matter what else is going on, I can rely on that minimum.
And I had to get used to that because one of the reasons that Dan and I do long distance very differently because of the people we're involved in. The reason that me and Big D work out so well together is because we don't need to contact each other every day. But we were already 7.5 years in when the long distance happened. But even when we were 90 minutes apart, I actually thought that we had to stay in touch every day and something was wrong if we didn't. And we sat down and talked about it and we're like, do we really need to be in touch every day? No, not really. We're okay with skipping a few days. Hell, at this point, we skip a couple of weeks. But if it's really thrilling to me, though, if I go to leave him a Marco Polo, which is something we'll talk about, I'll go to leave him a Marco Polo. He'll see I'm on the phone and leaving him a Marco Polo, which means I've got a little bit of free time. So he calls me and we're both not phone people. So the fact that he calls me while I'm available is actually phenomenal. So, when I pick up the phone, I'm like, hey, pick up the phone. Wait a minute. Pick up the phone. Hey, I'm old, right?
Yeah.
So I pick up the phone and it's like, hey, it's great to hear your voice. And so we reconnect that way by not talking every day. Seems to work for us at the moment.
And that's one of the other things that you're going to have to figure out is what is the communication tool that you want to use. I'm a big fan of texting, occasional phone calls, and sometimes I'm cool with phone calls. One of my partners likes video chat, right? It's not enough to just pick up the phone and talk, but she actually likes to have the camera and actually do the video chat. And that's cool, right? It's recognizing that that's what's important to them. And I'm okay with it, right? But finding out what your partners need out of those communications. It's super funny. When we do the video chat, the first thing we do is we kind of just like stare at each other for a while. And, if we're in a cartoon, little heart bubbles popping over your head, that kind of thing. But that's the kind of communication. So find out what your partners, don't assume that your style of communication works for them. Also, don't get stuck that you don't like doing so-and-so conversations. Dawn is super popular. She loves to say, I hate talking on the phone.
I really do. 10 years, more than 10 years of phone support, and the phone rings and I'm just like, oh, I'm not answering it. I am not at their beck and call, right? Though Big D calls me because it's so rare that it's an excitement. Mm-hmm. So, but if it was an expectation every day, which is really weird, because my first boyfriend was long distance and I made sure to call him every day at 7:00, drove him nuts and everyone around him. So maybe I just learned not to do that.
Yeah. But and the flip side is, as you're talking about communication, is to recognize that don't take silence personally. One of the first rules that I set down is that some days my work goes nutso. So if you send me a text that says, hey, what are you having for lunch today? And it takes me 3 hours to reply, don't start the story of, oh, he doesn't love me anymore, or whatever story we're going to tell ourselves. Let that be known that texting is a communication method that says, I will respond to you and I am able to respond to you. If you need me immediately, for gosh sakes, please pick up the phone and call. It's so rare that my partners call me that when they do call, it's, oh, an unplanned call must be something important that I need to talk to right now. And I'm fine with that. Do that. But understand that there's going to be delays throughout the day. Obviously, now there's a sidebar, right? We're in the middle of a conversation, right? That's different, right? But use that courtesy of saying, be back later. I got to take a break, however you're communicating.
Though after 10 years, Big D doesn't like to share a lot. I have to ask a lot of questions to find out how his life is going. So I will suggest to him again and again and again that he can text me or call me anytime there's an emergency. So when we were in the RV accident, which we'll talk about a little bit later, when we were in the RV accident, I decided to call him, which meant he knew it was an emergency if I called him. I called him. Well, he answered, but he answered from the emergency room. He had just broken his leg. So I'm like, so I'm calling you first, but yours happened first? Let's have a conversation.
And when you think about these different communication methods, one of them that people don't think about sometimes is, because it's not a true communication method, is social media, right? Now, first off, do you even want to be hooked up on social media? Some people are not social media users. One of my partners doesn't have a Facebook account, and I don't see them on Life very often. I don't use FetLife very often, and I never share. I use whatever Twitter's called nowadays, right? But you don't want your communication method to be social media. And what I mean by that, let's say I start in a poly situation, I've started to date someone new, or in Dawn's situation, whenever her boyfriend breaks a leg, she doesn't want to find out about that on Facebook, right? It doesn't feel like what you would do with a partner. What it feels like you should do with a partner is reach out and give them important news.
Or worse, find out from their other partner.
Casually, accidentally, yeah.
So, or through our podcast.
Yeah,
your partners do not like to find out things through our podcast. So try to do that whole management of surprises. Yes. Try to do for some of us, over communicating works really well until you figure out, what style it is that you want, and social media can be a blessing or a curse. You get to decide together what it is that you want.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you'll want to recognize is that because it's a long distance relationship, you're not in the same room all the time. You're not interacting directly all the time. Is that if Dawn's in a particularly low energy mode, well, I've been around her all day. I can see she's got not enough sleep, or she's been frustrated because of some project, something like that. I know to not take that personally. In your long distance relationships, and if you're in a low energy, share with them, hey, I'm low energy today. And you might even want to say, by the way, it's not about you. Maybe I'm having a shitty day. Let your long distance relationship know, I'm having a shitty day, by the way. And let them know before they start to interpret, wow, all these messages are very clipped today, very short.
One word or whatever, yeah.
So just let them know it's not about you, but yep, I'm having a pretty shitty day.
Yeah, because like you said, they can't see that from a distance. They're not with you. And if they're like me, they'll start building stories in their head. Oh, crap, what did I do this time? They're being very terse with me. And in reality, I mean, sometimes there's been moments that even for me, that someone will text me and they get a pre-offered response from the phone. So the phone will say, do you want to say, yep, nope, yay? And that's what I click, because I don't even have time to type in a response. So for whatever reason of whatever's going on, and then I explain later. So as soon as possible.
Right.
So
as you can tell, a lot of our tips today are about communication, and we're going to stay on communication. One of the things that you'll want to discuss with that long distance partner is, how do you want to have hard communication or hard topics, right?
Because if it's a relationship, there's going to be hard topics at some point. I had to have a hard conversation with Big D, and we had not discussed how we were going to have hard conversations, because when we lived 90 minutes apart, I could call him up and say, hey, I got something to talk about. Can you schedule some time so that I can drive an hour and a half to your place and we can talk? Whereas this time, I didn't even know what freaking state he was in. So, or if he was working or not working, or working on the farm, working on his job. So I wrote him an email and I said, sorry to do this. I don't like to talk on the phone, and I hate to be this person that writes you an email, but I'm going to do it anyway, because it's better to do this than to not have this talk at all. And then when I got done with the email, I said, even though I didn't call you, if you have free time and want to call me, that's perfectly acceptable. So when he had time, he called back, which happened to be right then. What I had to write took him by surprise. So we had a long conversation after that.
All you're doing is looking for how you want to have that conversation.
Yeah, but it took him by surprise because he's not here.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't feel that energy. He had no clue how my brain rambles sometimes, and how, even though we have the tool, don't take things personally, sometimes over time of the same repetition of responses or communication styles or whatever, you can start taking things personally. So make sure you reach out.
Yeah. And sometimes we think that, well, I'm going to save the hard conversations. I know I'm going to see this person in a month. I'll wait until we're together because that'll be easier.
And let's throw out a disclaimer. We're not trying to step on anybody's feet on purpose right now. This is a totally in general thing to keep in mind. I like to say that because some of our partners are on here.
Oh, well, fair, good point.
This is not passive aggressive anything.
Nor am I warning a partner that I will see next weekend. Oh, we have a big deal coming up here. No. The challenge becomes, you think, oh, I'm going to wait until we're in person, then we're going to have this serious conversation. But your partner might be saying, well, look, I get 3 days, I get 2 days with you, and you've waited to drop these bombs on me till then. There could be a variety of reasons they don't want you to wait. They might want to hear about it beforehand. They might want to hear about it after. You just have to have that conversation. How do you want to have these conversations?
Right.
For myself, I am a big fan of as soon as possible, because otherwise, the more time that goes by, the more I feel like I'm hiding something. One of my partners is not a fan of that. One of my partners is, look, you tell me you've got something and hold on to it. I'll tell you when I'm ready to receive it. So finding that balance there.
Well, that's when it's good to know yourself and your communication styles. The problem is if you've never done long distance before, you may think you have a certain communication style, and then it shifts as the relationship morphs and becomes its thing. You get to pay attention to what works for you, what works for them. And again, this is part of that communicate.
Yep.
Yay. People tell you to do it. We're trying to give you some hints on how to do it.
The fun part is you've learned all these communication tools. Maybe you've got your consistency going and all that kind of jazz. And then one day I go on a cruise, and I go on a cruise with one of my poly partners. But suddenly this communication I had with the other poly partner, with my other long distance relationship, good morning every day, good night every day. Well,
we're now out of country for one.
I love you, but I ain't paying international rates. That's supposed to be funny. Hopefully it came across that way. So recognize, what do we need to do if we're not in a situation where we talk every day? What do we do in a situation where communication is limited, either because there's a huge work project or we're traveling? Even something as traveling as easily as we're going to pop into Canada for a little while, and I don't know if I'm going to have Wi-Fi service and that kind of thing.
Sometimes we're presenting during those times.
Yes.
Well, a lot of times we present a lot. We've got weekend intensives. We've got things going on. All that stuff can, I don't want to say get in the way, because there's ways of working around it, but they can interrupt a pattern if you have a pattern.
Yeah. And pattern interruptions can feel very scary in long distance relationships.
Oh, absolutely. So what we recommend is, like I said before, is that whole management of surprises, or figuring out what's going to work for them. So like whether you're unavailable for 2 days, whether you're unavailable for the week, like we were, things like that. Is there stuff you can do proactively? Dan, when he was on a cruise with one of his other partners, he set up I'm telling one of your secrets. He set up proactive emails to come to me. And even though I knew they were like sent before, it was the thought that counted. So I knew you didn't have service, so you couldn't be sending them. So I knew something was up.
You just use an option in various email services, give you the option of writing the email on today, and it'll send on Wednesday instead of today. So I set a couple of those up for Dawn while I was on this cruise with someone else.
And it helped a lot. So that really worked for us.
All right. So all that we've shared with you so far is really baseline long distance relationships. Now we're getting into pro tips. Now we're getting into those juicy nuggets that we've learned that have been super effective and super valuable for us.
Everybody's shifting. It's like,
I'm
getting ready for this.
I don't know which one I want to start with. I want to start with this one, even though I'm not going to start in order. One of the things that I asked one of my partners to do, and we'll just make up a name, Tracy, And she was telling me, oh, I've got this friend this and this friend that, and we're going to get together and do the thing, right? I asked her to send me a picture of your friends, and on that picture, I want you to write their names down on for each person. And what that allowed me to do was when she's saying, oh, me and Annie did this, and then me and Bert did that, I could look at my little picture and say, oh, I can picture Annie. It made her feel like I was more invested in the relationship, because one of the things that we do in our local relationships, our non-long distance relationships, is you get to meet your partner's friends, you hang out with people, you find out who the people that are important in their life. In a long distance relationship, that can feel a little more challenging. This was a great way for her to feel like I was involved in this relationship for the long run, because I want to know who your friends are as well.
Well, and then when you got to meet this friend, you already had a little bit of context around it as to who you were talking to. That's kind of neat. It builds a little bit of a foundation and helps them feel you're involved in their life and vice versa.
Yep.
So I really like that.
One of the things that we'll do along the way is we talk about good morning, good night as the main messages, right? But one of the things that you want to do along the way, not just the major important things, little dumb things that you do along the day that if you're in a relationship in the same spot, you would know about. For example, I will let a partner know, I'll say, oh, we're off to play pickleball, and I'll send a picture of a pickleball racket, or going to go take a walk, or just came across this cool looking flower. Look at this flower. All these little things that they're not significant through the day, but they are significant that you're sharing these little bits of yourself along the way.
It's kind of a vulnerability thing too. I mean, like the flower and the pickleball, not necessarily so much. Maybe the flower, right? You have found something that is absolutely beautiful that you want to share with someone. So doing those little random things can be a sharing of a vulnerability.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that too.
And if one of the things they're sharing is I'm off for a doctor's appointment to have my big toe checked, try to be cognizant enough of that when you see them online again later, you say, how's that big toe going?
Some of us have to write a list of notes as to, especially with a lot of information, I try to keep notes because my day, it's like, oh crap, big toe.
Right.
Must ask about the big toe, simply because I want to know, but because I've just edited a podcast or whatever, I may forget. So I just get a little out of sync. So I write myself notes.
One of the other tools that we have found super useful, we use a tool called Marco Polo. If you're not an old person like we are, you're probably using Snapchat, but the idea is the same. You not only
love Marco Polo.
You're not just sending a text message, but you're sending these little micro or sometimes very long video messages where you're just taking the phone and you're talking to it and saying, oh, today I went and got my big toe checked, and then I lost at a game of pickleball, blah, blah, blah. And you're sending that as a video message where they can reply to whenever they want to, just like a text message. They can reply to it as needed. And sometimes these are just cute little things. And sometimes when you have more deep or vulnerable things to share, it's easier to share this way. It's easier for some reason to share how you are experiencing something visually.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a great way to communicate and to have these little touch points throughout the day.
So, and honestly, I can't talk about Marco Polo enough. I'm so glad someone introduced me to it, because we're talking long distance relationships with like lovers and poly partners and partners and things like that. I also introduced my sister to it, and my sister is East Coast, and I'm usually not East Coast. So her and I are going through a family issue right now. And she was Marco Poloing me and crying. And I found I could not Marco her back. I was trying to text back. And then I'm like, oh, fuck it. And I Marcoed her. And I said, so I put off Marcoing because I didn't want you to see my face. But this is the whole reason we do Marco, is so that we can be vulnerable with each other and have this connection. So I'm Marcoing you. And let me tell you my thoughts on this. And this way she could see the expressions on my face. Right? She didn't have to read into it with text. She didn't have to do the things. And sometimes I just sit there, and while I'm videotaping, I just take a breath and she gets silence. And you don't really get that with any idea of what that silence is about during text. So I really like the Marco Polos. I like not being on the spot as if I'm on FaceTime or something. I can do it when I need to. And I've got people on this call that they've apologized to me for not getting back to a Marco fast enough. And I'm like, whoa, Marco Polo is still casual conversation, no requirements needed. So you get back to it when you get back to it. But then I find that I have to take time off from interacting with people. And then 3 days later, I'm like, so I'm just getting back to your Marcos, but here, I'll catch up. And not that they're not important. Sometimes I just need to take a break. And it's a casual way of interacting. But that is one way that Big D and I do communicate. So is through Marcos, and it's really neat to see his face.
Right. Another thing we talk about the importance of communication and having all that some back and forth and all that. What if you're like got nothing going on and you don't know what to talk about? One of the things, and I believe it's pretty sure it's Tracy does a wonderful job of sending me a question of the day. She just doesn't have anything to talk about, and I don't have anything to talk about. We did good morning, we're working, nothing really going on. And she'll say, what's your favorite brand of cereal? Or what's the best pasta? Or do you think Queen or the Beatles is a better band?
Queen.
She'll be wrong also. So just, these bunch of if you had a minor superpower, what would it be? These little questions of the day that don't necessarily give you great insights into the human being, but they're fun to chat about. They're fun way to get to know each other. And it's just a matter of getting to know each other, right? And keeping that communication going. It just helps to keep that connection with each other.
And it's kind of funny, and we'll talk about this probably more in the poly section, maybe, I don't know. But at the moment, we've got really good relationships with polypods and metamors and things like that. So not only is it you in communication with your partners, you're also in communication with their partners. I'm in communication with your partners. And we've got some different styles of Marco Polos, right? Or text messaging or whatever. And so like me and Tracy, we have the question of the days and things like that. Me and Minkari, we have deep woo conversations, which are really cool as well. So know your audience and play with that. Well, I was going to say know your audience and play with that too, but that doesn't mean you can flip things a little bit as well. So Minkari, I might be asking you a question of the day soon.
Again, you want to stay in contact, you don't know what to talk about. Another great option is boardgamearena.com. What that is, it's a simple, you can play.
Peachy's beat our ass on
everything.
Board games.
I'm going to have to find a proxy to prevent you from finding that website again. It's terrible. But the idea of Board Game Arena is you have this opportunity to interact, but you're playing a board game together, which is something you might do in person as well. You can still chat, you get to see each other if you choose to, and you get to share a board game with each other. So it's just a great way to have time to interact with each other.
Something you've done with another partner that I forgot to add to the notes was actually watch a movie together. So COVID kind of helped us out with a lot of these tools. So if we wanted to keep in touch with friends and family and partners, we also learned that there was tools like watching movies together and having conversations and things like that. So that's also an option.
Yeah, a lot of the streaming platforms now allow you to do this, obviously, this option of watch this movie together, or you can just start a movie at the same time, or you watch a TV show, maybe not at the same time, but stay on those same series, right? It used to be that the number one poly issue was if your partner cheats on you, but close second behind that is if they start to watch whatever you're binge watching, but they don't wait for you, right? They watch a couple episodes ahead.
I almost started listening to Dark Tower today.
All by yourself,
all
right.
by myself, and then I was going to rewind it to where we stopped. And so I probably shouldn't do that, and we're not even long distance right now.
I know, that's terrible.
So another way that I stay in touch with friends, which is also long distance, right? Now that we've moved from Columbus and we've got people that we stay in touch with in South Carolina and stuff like that. I have a couple of friends that are total introverts, more than me, and would never go on a FaceTime or a Skype or anything like that, a phone call, nothing. But we stay in touch through sending each other links. So I know what someone's daughter, I know what she likes and what she's into. And I'll just, if I come across that on TikTok or Reels or Shorts or whatever it is, I'll send her a link and I'll get a laugh emoji back or something like that, especially if it's about a pit bull
Mm-hmm.
and or funny dogs or something like that. And she'll do the same. If she comes across something that reminds her of me, she'll send me a link. And sometimes that's all that's needed for that friendship. Now that's not nurturing a loving, a lover relationship, a partner relationship, but it can still come in really handy to just send those links because it's that little quickie of, oh, I'm thinking of you. And I know you well enough to know you're going to find this funny or you're going to find this whatever. And yeah, I actually like that. That speaks to my little introverted way of communicating as well.
Now, that's 45 minutes on communications, but there's other things that you can do in your long distance relationship that you want to
Indeed.
do as well. One of the things that I've got on my desk over there is I have a little, I'm going to use the word altar. And on that altar, I have a couple small items that I have gotten that remind me of my long distance relationship. It just sits there. It's just a nice reminder that I've got a relationship. And I glance over and I'll see it and I go, oh, isn't that cute? Or isn't that nice? Or isn't that a nice feeling of being reminded? Having those kind of those totems is another word that we want to use. Is there something that you carry with you in your pocket? Something on your keychain that says, this reminds me that I have a partner out there. And it's just a nice physical representation that I can hold on to say, yep, I've got someone out there.
Well, and that can feed into love languages, which we don't even talk about. But if, except I'm going to mention it here, with love languages, knowing what your partner and what their love language is, knowing what yours is. So if receiving gifts or giving gifts is a love language involved in there somewhere, know that so that you know to, like, if Big D, if his love language was receiving gifts, I'd be mailing him something every week because I know it would speak to his heart. He's not, so I don't. But I have someone else in my life that loves postcards while we're traveling, so I make sure to send postcards, something physical. I've got another friend that likes physical snail mail letters. We've been friends since high school, and that's how we used to stay in touch. And she still enjoys those. They're very nostalgic. I'm so old, but that's what she said. They're nostalgic. I like seeing your handwriting instead of your typing. See if that's something that works.
Right. And if you're in a long distance relationship with somebody that lives in an RV, I hope that your love language isn't gift giving, because they've got to be whatever it is, small or digital, please.
So
we don't have a lot of
everything you have right now is very small.
Yes.
So yes.
Another thing to keep in mind is that if you are in a situation where you are going to physically spend time together, and it's possible. Now, I recognize that for some long distance relationships, you're in Alberta and your partner's in Germany, and that's just the way it is right now. You're not going Victoria. That's what I wanted to say. Darn it, I forgot the name. I forgot where Minotaurus is. You're not going to be spending time together anytime soon. It's just physically not possible. That's a situation sometimes, but sometimes it's not. And if you are in a situation where you are going to spend time together, make sure you get something on the calendar, that you both have something to look forward to. And it's very challenging, right? And now we get into one of the big challenges of long distance relationship is the financial aspect of it. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. If you have that opportunity and it's possible, put some time on the calendar. So at least you have you have a foundation to say, you know what? I hate being away from my partner. It's tearing me up. At least I get to see him in 3 weeks or 3 months.
Yep, get it on the calendar. So whereas me and Big D never know where we're going to be. I mean, you and I know where we're going to be a couple of months ahead of time. But after February, March, we don't have a plan at the moment. So it's very hard for me to schedule ahead of time with Big D unless he and I decided, ooh, we're going to do this for our anniversary, or we're going to do this. Then we would make sure our RV got there, or our RV got to a airport so that I could fly there. Right. So, but we would put something on the calendar. As it is, we're going to be, and you were very nice about this. We were only going to stay a night in Albuquerque, which is where he's at with his daughter at the moment. But I think we're going to stay a week simply because me and Big D haven't seen each other in over a year.
Right.
So, and here's hoping a week isn't too long. No, I don't think it will be.
Now, as I reflected on, one of the big challenges of long distance relationships is it can be a financial burden. I go to visit any of my partners, unless the RV is literally in their city, which happens on occasion, chances are somebody's going to have to fly somewhere, right? They're going to fly to wherever I'm at. I'm going to fly to where they're at. Then we're going to have hotels. Then we're going to be eating out. Right.
Because the RV only has one queen size bed, and we have figured out that probably isn't going to fit 3 people very comfortably.
No, nor does it really work
for
my dating time with my other partners.
No, that's okay. So, either one of us has to leave the RV, but it's easier if one of us stays in the RV and the other one goes and visits.
So the reality of that situation is that you just have to be mature about it. You have to accept the fact that there are significant, sometimes financial aspects to it. And we may not get to see each other every month because of that, right? We may have to limit it to every other month, every 3 months, that sort of thing. It can be very stressful if only one person carries the burden of all that financial responsibility. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's just the way it is, but it's going to be less stressful if that cost can get split between partners if that's a situation you're in. Now, we recognize that's a much bigger conversation because everybody's got a various set up for their finances and stuff, but trying to keep it balanced and fair as best that you can.
Yeah, indeed. So another thing that we found that worked really well for us at the beginning, because at our beginning, you had a lot of business trips, mm-hmm. right? So something that really worked well for us was Dan would leave his shirt behind. He would leave an item of clothing that had his smell on it so that I could sleep with it. And that kind of helped us as well. So a pillow, an item of clothing, anything like that.
It can be very interesting in bonding, right? If Minkari says, "Oh, I love the way that red shirt looks on you. Boy, that red shirt's so cute on you." She says it 3 times, and then one day in the mail, I've sent her the red shirt. I say, "Keep that for me for a while," right? Wouldn't that be a sweet little thing? Which I wish I'd thought about prior to this presentation. Now it's not going to be a surprise.
Well, that would have been really cool if you'd have sent it and she had it on camera. Lucky you guys, Dan doesn't smoke anymore. So the t-shirts I had smelled like cigarette smoke, but smelled like Dan. Mm-hmm. so that really worked.
Now we're going to jump into some poly-specific aspects of it.
Even though we've kind of talked about that.
Let's hold off for a second because we haven't talked about one thing that may be in your mind: sex. Just because you are long distance does not mean you are not having sex.
That needs its
together.
Whole little thing on here.
It does indeed.
Yes.
Now
if you have a sexual relationship.
Granted, if you have a sexual relationship, and some don't, and that's fantastic. If you do have a sexual relationship, just because you're long distance doesn't mean that you cannot share some sexuality together.
Marco Polo comes in handy for that, just saying.
I was not aware that was part of your dynamic. Thanks for sharing.
So when you check my phone, you might want to be careful with my Marco Polo.
That's all. Yes, it's an interesting conversation when you pick up your partner's phone to look something up, and the first thing you're looking at is one of their other partner's dick. But I don't know.
I have warned him for years. You may get a random dick pic.
And I do.
Requested.
So, exploring what you are comfortable with, right? Now, some people are not comfortable self-pleasuring on video while their partner watches, but I personally think that is something that you can develop. Give your partner time to get used to that. As Dawn said, sometimes you'll play with yourself on Marco and share that with a partner. You might decide, hey, it's 10 a.m. What are you doing? Well, what am I doing? Let's get on the phone and do that together. Mutual masturbation while you're on the phone, or even when you're not on the phone, to just say at 10 a.m. I'll be in there. What's a nice way I'll be in there jerking off, thinking about you jerking off while you're jerking off and thinking about me jerking off.
Yeah.
And then maybe send a clean picture or whatever afterwards, right?
I think
a variety of ways that you can still connect sexually, but work on what our natural resistance to that and find what you're comfortable with, right? We've all seen those situations of revenge porn. So some people like, no, I don't want nobody taking a picture of me. That's where an advantage of something like my understanding of Snapchat, which it doesn't keep that video.
Right. I was going to say the same thing. I was like, why would you use Snapchat chat? Because then you lose the video. And sometimes I like to go back on the Marco Polos and, oh, that's why. Yes. So if it gets rid of the little evidence,
yes,
I would be good with that too. Though I do like to keep some.
And there's a variety of toys out there, even more so than ever, that are Bluetooth set where I can do something on my phone and it will stimulate somebody on the other end. They make these for both male-bodied people and female-bodied people. I have yet to get them to work successfully often. But that's a technology thing where it's like, oh, I want to get you off, but I'm having connectivity issues, or I'm having internet issues, or you know what, it's just not sexy.
When you have to call technical
support. Yeah, tech support, right? Yes.
I'm trying to get my girlfriend off. There's no connection. What are we doing?
And if you could answer quickly, that would really be important to all of us here. So let's get into some of those poly aspects. And I want to talk about sex a little bit further, but from the poly perspective. One of the things that I've shared with one of my partners, we'll just make up a name, Tracy, who's actually out there, that's not really a made up name, is that I want her to continue, because we're long distance. And
we've warned them, we're talking about them, right? Oh, it doesn't work that way. Okay, sorry, fair game.
I told her early in our relationship that I recognize that we're in a long distance relationship and time goes by, and I don't want, just because I'm not there, I don't want her to have sex with anyone just because I'm not there, right? We're polyamorous. Having relationships, having sexual relationships with other people is part of the polyamory thing. Sometimes, right? Some people it's not that way. But for us, when you're long distance, your partner having sex with someone else can be particularly challenging, even scary.
So we're using sex as the catalyst, but in general, it's about processing emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's done something and you need to process emotions about it. So sex is just a catalyst on this, but a big one.
Yes, and I'm a male-bodied person, so sex is a big one. That came out funny. So to be able to support your partner and say, to let them know, I love you very much. You're very important to me. I understand that you're off with the boyfriend and you guys are boinking or whatever the kids call it nowadays, and we're still strong. And how do you develop your communications around that to continue to be strong around that? It's very challenging to deal with that idea that perhaps their other partner is a local person, right? Who they get to see fairly often. We, at least in America, male-bodied people have been taught that unless we're the person laying the pipe, then we're in danger of losing that person. And to build those communication tools around that, just let them know, this is not the case, and to operate it from a place of generosity instead of scarcity. I want you to be out there being happy, enjoying yourself. And I'm not afraid that our love is this limited dynamic of there's only 90 or 100%, that once somebody else takes part of it, that you won't have some left for me.
Exactly. So yes, we are almost out of time.
We
talk a lot. So let's talk a little. Can we talk a little bit about?
Yep. Let's hit power exchange real quickly. Having rituals that the other person does, in the follower can have certain rituals that they do, even if they're not there. They still can kneel for you on a daily basis. They could still ask permission to eat or ask permission to come if that's your relationship. Having those rituals that continue to happen, you'll make small modifications because, again, long distance relationship. If you have a dynamic where you have a partner that's only gets to use the restroom when you give them permission and you're in the middle of a 3-hour meeting, that may not be so wise.
I also want to mention that as a follower, as a submissive, a way of building trust in this long distance relationship that's a power exchange one is to tattle on yourself when you do something wrong, right? So I don't know that I could ever do an online only relationship, because if they told me to do something, I'd be like, oh yes, sir, I did it. And I haven't done it. But with something that I'm nurturing and something that I will see the person in person, and I'm trying to create this dynamic. If they've told me to kneel at 9 a.m. every morning and I forget one morning, they're not going to know unless they have video cameras, which is another way of staying in touch, right? They're not going to know unless I tell them. So if I want a trusting, transparent relationship, I need to offer that information and deal with whatever the outcome is as if we were in person.
Right.
Part of me resists that one, but then again, I totally believe in it too.
Absolutely. It's 100% builds trust in that power exchange relationship. And I have to assume the best because you don't ever want, I never question any of my followers that they're doing what I told them to do. I operate like they did, and they recognize that, and they're going to respond to that appropriately.
So another thing with power exchange is we've actually interviewed some people on the podcast about this. There's an app out there called Obedience, and it keeps track of different chores and different expectations that the follower is supposed to follow through with. So the leader was saying that he can see when the follower's done the thing because she's gone onto the app, they've gone onto the app and filled out that they've done the thing, which is his trigger to then contact them, and then they have a conversation about it. So just an app to stay in touch with. I mean, there's all kinds of online things and apps and whatever that we can do to stay in touch. So polyamorous wise, I wanted to jump into that real quick because another thing that was really, really, really important for long distance relationships that is a personal story that happened to us recently was the RV accident. When the RV accident happened, Dan and I are together. So we're like, oh my God, what's this thing? You know, how are we going to deal with it? How are we going to do this? And then we tell our long distance partners that this horrendous thing has happened. And even though they're glad that we've got each other, we've got support for each other, they really needed to be involved in it. And we recognized that before we even reached out to them. We're like, oh my God, they're going to be like wanting to help and not knowing how to help. And so what do we do? And then we realized that we needed help. And Dan figured out their strengths and contacted them and allowed them to help us.
You're right. So when you have these significant aspects of life come along, your long distance relationships, the first thing they're going to think is, but I'm not there to help. But they can still help you. So give them an idea of how they can help, whether it's booking a hotel, finding a car rental, whatever it is. Maybe it's just Googling the nearest restaurant so you don't have to go out and find something to eat, right? Let them be involved in those major issues in your life and let them support you in the ways that they can. Again, as Dawn mentioned, we're in this culture now where being able, heck, if I told one of my partners, gee, I can't go out tonight because I'm too busy, can you order me some DoorDash? That's something they can do from a long distance now.
Easily done. So, and just like when I couldn't get to a funeral of my partner's family, I couldn't get to the funeral, I sent them food cards.
Yeah.
I sent them food gift cards so that they wouldn't have to cook. And I couldn't be there, but I could at least let them know I was thinking of them in a way that I could. That really, really worked for us. And that was with Big D's daughter. So, you know, because I keep relationships with his family too.
Bam. And there you go. Long distance relationships in an hour. A real quick shout out to both Tracy and Minkari, who I did pump for information and saying, you know, what am I doing right about long distance and what am I doing poorly? And I won't tell you which was the larger response to those questions, whether I was doing right or poorly, but they both had feedback for me. So that's great. And I appreciate that feedback. What happens now?
So thank you, everybody, for letting us fire hose you. And now we're going to go to questions, which means we're going to stop the recording.